Hello, 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 hello. So we are doing DSA questions, interview questions. Today we will do this one of the most important questions which are asked in interview, which is named insert interval. So before I start this, I would like to tell you that every detail about this code and related details about this particular code will be in the description, and the Hindi version of this video will be also linked in the description. So let's first understand this question and try to solve it. Okay, so again, let me use this pen. So as you can see, we have to insert some interval here, and we have an array, a vector inside a vector. So we have this vector inside of this vector. So this is a vector, and this is a outer vector, and we have integer type in this vector. I'm telling you this because I will discuss the structure of a function which is written here. So we are given this, and what we have to do is that we have 1 and 3 in one vector, then 6 and 9 in one vector, and the new interval is 2 and 5. So we have to insert this 2 and 5 between these two. As you can see, 1 is less than 2, so 1 will be not affected. And as you can see that the last element of this new vector is 5, so the new vector which we can make is from 1 to 5. Like we can make this, and in this from 1, 2, 3, 4 till 5, all the elements will be there, and 6 and 9 will not be affected, and that's the output which we are getting. And we are getting output again in vector inside a vector of type integer. So this is what we have to do. So we would have a vector inside a vector, and we have to insert an interval between a given vectors. So now we will come to the structure of our function. So as I discussed that we are given a vector inside a vector of which consists of integers, and we are given a vector, not vector inside a vector, but a single vector which we have to insert, and we have to return vector inside a vector of type integer. And you can name function whatever you want to name it, that's on you, but for this video sake it would be insert only. So let's do this. So whenever some sort of insertion, deletion, or interval case come, my mind immediately goes to two pointer approach. That is because in two pointer approach there is a way by which we can find a middle of an vector, and then we can use that technique to solve it. But I won't use that here, because if I use this mid, start, and end technique, I don't know where to insert, right? So I have to find some way where I can check for this and compare it with this, and or I can check for this and compare it with this and this. So we have to solve this question by that way. So let's do that only. And there can be two conditions in this. The one condition can be overlapping with uh, overlapping, and the other condition could be that it is not overlapping. It isn't overlapping. So in our case, it is overlapping because 1 and 3, there is 2 in between, and from 1 to 5 all the elements are in between. That is the case of overlapping. But if there is no overlapping, let's say if I got a condition vector 1 and 3, and again 6 and 9, we have 6 and 9, and we have to insert 10 to 12. In this case there is no overlapping because all the elements are covered here, all the elements are covered here. All we have to do is put after 6 and 9. So that is the case of not overlapping, but in our case the elements are overlapping. So we will first address these two cases, and then we will solve for it. So what I can say is that if you look closely, this is the index 0 of outer vector, and this is the index 1 of a outer vector, right? And if we go inside it, the inner vector, then the number 1 is at 0th index of this vector, and the number 3 is first index of the first vector. So how we will traverse it? So what I can do is that I can say this is I, and then we can traverse through outer vector and get value of inner vector to compare it with. So we can do that. So let's do that. Okay. Okay. I have to choose a cursor here. So let's do this. So first, let's make a variable to insert a length because we will traverse. So we have to find we have to know the length of the intervals dot size. This will give the length of our vector, the outer vector interval dot size, and I will say that because I have defined int, I can say int I is equals to 0. This is same as saying int I is equals to 0, but in our case I was writing in a one line, but let's do this because that we can, like if we write in a way in one line, that can create a confusion for beginners. So let's say n is inserting the length, I is inserting the initial value of I is at 0. Now let's check for no overlapping case. So let's say I is less than n, which will be true at initial case, and I will say and intervals, which is an outer vector interval I, which we use for traversing, and 1, the value of inner vector, is less than or equal to the value of new interval, what it is, new interval I 0. Let me explain what this line is doing. Okay, so what it is doing basically, it is coming to intervals and it is checking for I, this index, this is our I, which is this, and this one represents the inner part, this value, right? Then we will check, okay, for this value, is it a case where this new interval value is greater than or equal to this value, right? If that's not the case, then there is no overlapping. So if that's not the case, then there is no overlapping. If it is the case, then there is an overlapping, right? So let's do this. So we will say, okay, this is this, and then if there's there's no, so let me first, why I'm using I, it would be 0 because we are checking for the first element for new interval, first element. So in that case, uh, we have to make an output vector also because we have to return a vector inside a vector. So I am making a vector where I can store and return that value. So what I will do with this, I will store my values in this, and which is this, and I will return this as an output. So there's that. So I made this. So if there is no overlapping, while I is less than n and I and interval I and 1 is greater than or equal to new interval 0, then there is no overlapping. Then do what? What you can do, you can just go ahead and push it because we have to just push back. We don't have to do it, we have to just store that value. then push back intervals I, then push back interval I. I will increase the value of I plus plus by 1. I will increment the value of I. So in case of no overlapping, just compare and push. This is what it is doing. Okay. Now what if there is an overlapping? So again, while I is less than n and at interval intervals I interval I or in new intervals last value, because if last value is less than or greater than the value which is given in intervals vector, that means there is an overlap. So I can say new interval which is which is the vector which we have to store interval I, sorry, 1, because last value we have to come check for 5. Like if this is greater than this, that means this comes after this. That means there is an overlapping. So if new interval I is greater than or equal to interval I 0, that means there is an overlapping. Then what you can say? You can say the new interval 0, not O, but 0 is equal to the new interval 0 is equal to minimum of what? Minimum of new interval 0 and interval I 0. So what it is doing, let me explain this. So, okay, let me get the pen first. This. Okay, so we are checking, just a sec. Let me move this and get this. So we are checking whether this new interval last 5 is greater than equal to. If it is greater than equal to the this first, right? If interval new interval 5 is greater than equal to this, right? That means this comes after this. That means there is an overlapping. So to store this, we have to compare whether the first index of this new interval is smaller or the first index of intervals first vector is smaller, because with if the index of this interval is smaller, then that will get stored here, because that means then this element is greater than this. But in our case that's not the case. In our case, our interval's first element is smaller than our new interval's first element. So what this will get us, this will get us 1, because we are comparing between 2 and 1, and 1 is smaller than 2. That means the new interval 0 will be 1. So that will get stored here, right? And after that, I will compare. Let me go ahead and say new interval first, right? And I will compare for max, because I have to find the maximum value. So for new interval or new interval 1, okay, let me erase this or you will get confused here. I will compare from for I will compare with the last uh, value of new interval to interval I 1. So this will get us the maximum value between this and this. In our case, the maximum values lies in new interval, which is 5. Then what will it will do? It will store 5 here. So this is our new vector, and then we will store this into our result, which is vector of vector, and then we will return it, right? That is what it is happening here. So max interval, new interval, and intervals. Okay. So this is that, and I will again increment the value of I. So after doing case for overlapping and lapping, we don't have to do it. We have to just return the value. So we have to push it in rest dot push underscore back, rest dot push back the value of new interval. The value of new interval will be pushed in rest. Okay, and then we'll say, okay, way of pushing the value. Then we can say while I is less than n. One more time. If I is less than n, just a sec. Rest dot push back. Rest dot push back intervals I and I will get incremented. So what it is doing is, in case of no interval, after no interval is merged, then it will check it and again push. This is for confirmation and all. Then all I have to do is return res. Let's run this. Let's see what we get. So there is an error interval. So insert intervals. Now run it. Okay. Okay, let me check it again. So I'm doing this somewhere here, new interval. Okay, okay, it won't be this, it would be this because I'm checking for I and okay, yeah, because if this is smaller, like this is smaller than the first, that means there is no overlapping. Now, if I run it, then let's see. That was a very silly mistake. Okay, now our code got accepted. So what actually happened? Let me tell you this. So I checked for our intervals vector, and what I did, I said greater than equal to this, which is not the case in case of overlapping. Like in case of no overlapping. In case of no overlapping, if it is like it should be less than this. That in and in that case only we can merge it. But if there is an overlapping, we have to find the max and min of it. So that was the error which was here. So this is how you can solve insert interval question of DSA. And if you want to read about this code in English, Hindi or English, the link will be in the description. And all the details about this code will be in the description. I will see you in the next one. Bye bye. Peace.